Jess from Pieces of Books, and today I'm here with another series recommendations video, but for this time I'm going to do series that are not standalones. So last week I did post a video called like bingeable romance series that you should pick up, and right now we're in a time where we have a lot of time on our hands, honestly. You need something to take your mind off of something. Pick up these series. These series I have today are series that go along a story that cannot be broken up, and so you have to read them in order. Some of them are 18 books long, and they're long series, and I am super excited because a lot of them I've only read the first book of and I really want to pick up more from, and so a lot of them do end on cliffhangers, or they have the same couple throughout all of them and they like deal with different things, and so I have a lot to share with you. I will link down below my recommendation video from last week where they were all standalones, and I will get to the series that are continuation. I don't even know, like, what are these series called? Just series? They're standalone series, continuation series? I don't know. If you know, let me know and I'll get to them. So I'm gonna leave ones I recommend all the time on my channel to the end, except for this first one, which is going to be the Addicted series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This series is one of my favorites and I still have not finished it. I think I'm only like 6 or 7 books in, and it's super long, and it's kind of confusing on Goodreads because there's like the Addicted series and there's the Calloway Sisters series, but they overlap, and so you like go from one series to the other and back to the other. These are primarily about Lily and Lo, which is what the Addicted series is about, and so Lily is a sex addict, Lo is a alcoholic, and they are best friends, and they are fake dating to get their parents off their back so no one knows that they have addictions, and they kind of enable each other, and so it's so good. That the main Addicted series always goes back to Lily and Lo, but then we have the Calloway Sisters series, which is about Daisy and Reich and Rose and Connor. Rose and Connor are like your power couple. Rose is a very strong, independent woman, and then Daisy and Reich is an age gap, and Daisy's like the young wild child, and Reich is actually someone who is very present in the Addicted series. They're all very present, and they're all like celebrities by the end of the series, and I think they even have their own reality show at one point, so they're so good. This series is so addicting. It's called Addicted for a reason, and I would definitely recommend it, and I need to stop talking about it because I've talked about it too much, but it's good. You should pick it up. Next, I have Darkfever by Karen Marie Moning. I've only read the first book. I read it twice because I read it like 4 years ago and did not remember anything from it, so I wanted to reread it. Honestly, I only remembered the ending scene where like everything was like built up and like happened, so I didn't remember a lot that happened in here, and this is actually urban fantasy, I believe. So our main character's sister is studying abroad in Ireland, and she ends up dying, and our main character decides to go and find out what happened to her sister because she had this really weird voicemail from her that she missed talking to her, and she goes to try to uncover what happened to her, and she stumbles upon this bookshop owned by this guy named Baron, and he knows things about paranormal things, and they start working together, and I believe they have a romance. There's no romance in this first book, but I think it's super slow burn and like builds throughout the series, and definitely a cliffhanger at the end of this one, and we still are trying to figure out what happened to her sister. We know a little bit of what happened by the end, but it's really good, and I really love this first one, and I really want to read more of them soon because I've heard the series is really good and only gets better, especially with the romance. Next is another one I've only read the first book from, and that is the Thorn Chapel series by Sierra Simone. There's currently 2 books out. Book 3 comes out, I think, within the next month, and I really enjoyed this first one. It is a polyamorous romance, and so there's a group of 6 people. They all met up at this house when they were younger because their parents were doing some things, and then they are now adults in their 20s, and they are back at this house at this Thorn Chapel. It's this chapel attached to this house where they decide to uncover what their parents were doing, and our main character is a librarian, and she is cataloging the library at this mansion, and they're all back for a different reason, and they all kind of like each other, and there's like rituals and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed this. I did give it 4 stars. I thought it could have done more, but it was really good, and I'm very intrigued by the next book. I was looking at reviews of book 2 before I finished this, so I was super spoiled by the ending of this one, so don't do that, but I'm intrigued to read book 2. I have heard it's not as good, but I feel like if I go in with an open mind, I might like it and not think of what everyone else says about it, so I am excited to continue on with the series and see what book 3 is like. The cover's gorgeous for book 3. You should check it out. It's gorgeous. While you have some time on your hands, it might as well be time to read some big books, right? So why not read Outlander? I love Outlander so much. I've only read 2.5 of books, so I feel like now I should be reading Voyager because I read about half of it on vacation 2 years ago and never picked it back up, but the first book is honestly my favorite. I loved watching the show and then reading the book. There's a lot of politics involved with this series, especially book 2. It's about a woman who time travels back to the Highlands during the time of the huge Battle of Culloden, which pretty much demolished the clans in Scotland. Britain just took over and killed off the clans, and so it's super hard to read and watch when it happens, but it's so good. Because of that, though, it does mean that book 3, Voyager, they're leaving Scotland, and 4 and 5, they're in America, which is not my favorite, so that's why I'm not rushing to finish the books, because the show has not been my favorite right now. But oh my gosh, books 1 and 2 are so good. Book 2, they go to France, and book 1, they are in Scotland the whole time, which is my absolute favorite. And it's Claire and Jamie. Claire's the one who time travels, falls in love with a Highlander. So good. So good. Jamie is like my #1 book boyfriend, so if you haven't, I would recommend binging the show, which is on Netflix right now, seasons 1 through 3, I think, and then reading the book. While you have some time, you might as well pick up my favorite series of all time, which is Black Dagger Brotherhood. There are now 18 books in this series, 4 in the spin-off series, and 1 novel that's pretty much a spin-off that they're counting as a book, but it's not really a book in the series. And so you have a lot that you can read. Over 20 books in this series. They're vampires. They're amazing. There's like fated mates and good things going on, and my favorite heroes of all time. You have your damaged heroes. I will say books 1 through 10 are really the best, and then they kind of just are okay. So if you want books that you're addicted to, like Another Teacher at School, I'm a teacher, so one of my coworkers was reading this and said she loved it because I told her she had to read it because it's one of my favorites. So I want you to pick this up and try it out. Read at least the first 5, because then you have Zadis and Butch, who are the best ever. But if you read at least the first 5, I would be very happy with you. I know that 18 books is a lot to commit yourself to, but you should read them. They're so good. They're vampires. Like, I don't know what else to say about the series, but book 18 comes out on the 24th. I'm filming this on the 23rd, so it comes out tomorrow, so check it out. The next series I have is a trilogy, and it's one I talk about a lot. So it is I don't remember what it's called, but the first one's Bad Saint by Monica James. It is a dark romance. Our main character is abducted on her wedding night, and she is then taken to the person who has like bought her, and one of her captors, who's called Saint, she ends up falling for, and they kind of fall for each other, even though he is taking her to the person who is trying to buy her. So dark romances, dark things happen to our main character. Book 1, book 2, and book 3 are all very different from each other because they're all at very different points of her being abducted. So keep that in mind. Book 1 was my favorite. I gave it 5 stars. I gave the other ones 4 stars, but this is still a really fun trilogy to pick up and read. I know she put them on sale last week. I don't know if they're still on sale, so I would check that out if I were you. Then I have the first book in a trilogy, and I have not continued on, but I really want to, and that is Violent Delights by Jessica Hawkins. This is book 1 in a mafia romance, so if you like those dark romances, read this. She is like the princess of I think it's in Mexico, like a Mexican mafia situation going on, and she was going to college in the US and then has to come back. Her mother was murdered when she was younger, which we get that scene in here, and she has been in love with this boy she's grown up with all her life, but then his older brother comes into the picture and is stirring up some bad and good feelings in her, and that's all I want to say. This does end on a huge cliffhanger, so I'd recommend reading the next one, and I haven't done that yet, but I'm going to, so if you want a good series to binge that's already finished, I would recommend this series. The next series is pretty old, and I haven't finished it either, but it is kind of like you can read sections of the series by themselves. So it is the King series by T.M. Frazier. I think it's the first 2 are King, the second 2 are Bear, and then the next 3 are Preppy, and then we have Up in Smoke, and then I think we have another one which are all about different characters. And I've read the first 3, so I read the first 2 King ones, and then I read Bear's book, and then I skipped to Up in Smoke, and I was fine. But you can't read book 1 without reading book 2, and honestly I was super spoiled by everything that happened in the series when I read the 9th book by itself. I already knew that stuff. Somehow I because something happens to a character in one of the books and then they get the later books. So obviously, like, you knew something was up. But I love this series. They're dark romances. They have to do with a motorcycle gang. Doe wakes up not knowing who she is, and so she meets a girl, and then they kind of go to the MC house, and she's like, don't worry, just find yourself a guy and he'll take care of you. And she meets King, and that's really where the book series takes off. It's so good. It's been years since I've read these, but I have to pick them back up. Bear's my favorite, so I don't know why I haven't finished his 2 books. It's kind of that situation where I don't want to read it because I don't want it to be over, but like, that means I've been putting it off for 4 years. So I definitely recommend reading the series. Next is a duet that also has a 3rd book tacked onto it, and that is the What He Doesn't Know duet by Candy Steiner. This is a love triangle. Our main character's married, but someone from her past comes back, and her husband have a very strained relationship right now, and she's like, do I go stay with my husband, or do I go to this guy who's actually showing me love and affection and like he wants to take care of me? So they're so angsty and so good. Book 2 is even better than book 1 because I feel like we didn't get a lot of angst in book 1, but book 2, whoo, so much angst. Love triangles are my favorite, especially when Candy writes them. And then book 3 is actually about the guy she doesn't choose. So I love that Candy gave a happily ever after to the guy in the love triangle who didn't actually get picked. So this was a situation where I literally had no idea who she was going to choose. There was no obvious right choice. There was no obvious who she wanted more. I definitely was rooting for someone in book 1 and then was rooting for something different in book 2. So I would recommend picking this up if you want something angsty. Another duet is the Him and Us duet by Serena Bowen. This is again something I've only read the 1st book from, but I love this. It's MM. I don't know what book 2 is about. This one pretty much had an HEA, so a happily ever after. I don't know what happens in book 2, but it's about Jamie and Wes, and they are hockey players, and they had played together when they were younger and went to camp together, and I think only one plays now, and they're like coaching together. It's been a while since I've read this, but it's really, really, really good. They are coaching together at camp, so it's so good, and it's a duet, so you can devour them both, and I would recommend it. Next is a chunky series where 3 books are out so far, and that is the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. Another dark romance, new adult bully romance, and this one is about our main character Rika, who it flashes between the past and the present. All of them do, books 1, 2, and 3. Book 4 is not out yet, and they're all about the 4 different guys. This one's about Rika and Michael, and they had a past together. Something happened on Devil's Night. Michael and his friends like rule the town. Michael's a professional basketball player, and something happened where they all blame Rika for it, and she doesn't know why, and now we're in the present where she's in college, and Michael won't leave her alone, and they are bullying her, they're pulling tricks on her, freaking her out, and if you don't like dark romances, you will hate this series, but I'm so addicted to it. This one's Rika and Michael, book 2 is Kai, book 3 is Damon, who is the villain of the books, and then book 4 is Will, who I feel like is just like forgotten about and just struggling in these books. He's struggling a lot in these books, so I'm very excited for his book. It should come out this year. These are so good, and they're chunky. They are huge books, so I would definitely recommend picking them up. The last series I have for you guys have probably all heard of and read now, but I'm just going to recommend it anyway in case you haven't, and that is the Paper Princess series by Erin Watt. There are 3 main books in the series, 2 in a spin-off, and then another one, I think. I don't know if there's a book 6. I feel like there was a book 6 about the older brother, but I don't know if that was just in their newsletter. But these are so good. High school bully romances, new adult though, and our main character is stripping because her mother passed away and she's trying to support herself, and this guy shows up and is like, hey, I'm your dead dad's best friend, and she's like, I never knew my dad. He's like, well, you're gonna come with me and live with my sons, and I'm gonna take care of you. And so her sons bully her, they hate her, they think she's taking advantage of their dad, and she goes to high school with them, and it goes from there. It's so good, so addicting, you will fly through them. My dad read these and he liked them. He's been branching out into some romance, so they're not PG though, so don't let that fool you because my dad read them. They are definitely not YA. My dad asked, like, why is this in the YA section? And I was like, it's not supposed to be. It is definitely new adult. There are very adult situations in these books, and I don't think 16-year-olds, I would not hand this to a 16-year-old. Obviously, if I was 16, I would have read this, but I'm not going to hand it to one of them. So there are some more mature things going on in these, but I would recommend them. I loved them so much. And those are some series recommendations for you. Let me know down below if you have any recommendations for me. There are a couple I left off of here. Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa is a really good series. I was going to do the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas, and I think that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head that I didn't talk about before. I don't know if you would consider the Hades Hangman series by Tilly Cole standalones, or if you have to read them in order. because I haven't read past the first book and I wanted to recommend that series, but I don't know. So let me know if you have any good series recommendations. Leave them down below for me, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day.